Okay, in this lesson, we are going to be looking at challenge number 5. Challenge number 5 is kind of a basic version of PacMan. And what you'll notice is that the challenge talks you through a lot of even the programming script here, so you shouldn't be too challenged with some of it. So I'd suggest before you even watch this video, because I'm going to talk you through a lot of things in depth, I would actually just go to the assignment, open up the tutorials as the document and follow that first and try and figure out some of it on your own because it tells you exactly what to do in a lot of cases. Also, at any point in time you want to try stuff, pause the video, try it yourself, and you can always go above and beyond. I'm actually really excited about this activity because there's tons of stuff you can make this game do in order to make it more like the real Pac-Man, and I'll be mentioning that once in a while even though it's not part of the challenge. So for example, all of these challenges that would make it go above and beyond, you're more than welcome to try. You can make it so you get points while you collect dots. I'll talk about that. Make it so that you have 3 lives, which I won't mention, but you could do that as well. You could do a title screen, game over. You can make new levels, all that sort of stuff. So we'll be kind of talking our way through that, okay? So first of all, I created a backdrop. So you can see my backdrop here, nothing special. And again, if you want to, you're more than welcome to. So here's my backdrop here. You're more than welcome to make it more intricate than this. You can make it more similar to the actual Pac-Man. The important thing, remember, is that I'm in vector mode. So all of these are individual things that can theoretically be moved. And another thing I would suggest for you, if you'd want to, is to ensure that you can just copy and paste. If you want equal thicknesses, I often just did copy paste and copied the wall, and then I can change the length of it if I want to, and it makes everything a little bit easier and it makes it a little bit more symmetrical. The important thing is that regardless of what you are creating here is that you have equal kind of width for your lanes. Otherwise, Pac-Man, if he's too big for certain lanes, you can't go through it, etc. Okay, so that's kind of where we started. The next thing where we went was into the actual Pac-Man character. So I created the Pac-Man sprite. I did that again in vector, and I introduced all of these programs here for my Pac-Man. So you can see my Pac-Man's here. I duplicated him and I made it so with all these programs here, I made it so he can move around. If he's touching the sidewall, again, you can pause this video at any point in time. The only additional thing I did here was I made it so that when I clicked the green flag, he always went to a certain position. And you can, if you don't know about that, you might want to go into my Flappy Bird video 4 if you forgot about how to do that. But I made it so whenever that happens, he goes up to the top corner. But you can make it go wherever you want to. And instead of moving 5 steps, I'm making mine 3 steps just to slow down my game overall. Generally, the rest is the same though. So you'll see Pac-Man, he moves. If he hits the wall, he bounces. If you're having issues with that, if he gets a little bit glitchy, it's probably because you didn't center him on the origin. There's a few ways you can work with that. So for those of you who are having Pac-Man when he's bouncing off the walls a little bit more in a glitchy manner, what you might want to do is after, this is a really quick fix that sometimes I had, is after he turns 180 degrees, have him move, because then he won't be touching the wall. Have him move a certain number of steps. If you haven't moved too far, like 40 steps, it'll look ridiculously fake. So you'll see here, if he hits the wall, he's going to jump way off the wall. So he jumped like way out to here. Maybe you didn't see it. But have him move a very, very minute number of steps. Might be a good thing for you to do if you've been struggling kind of with him kind of getting stuck in a wall and bouncing back and forth over and over, okay? So that's that piece of the script. The next thing in the game had to do with these little pills here, I'll call them. So we created them. It also gives you the dots, I guess. Gives you the script you can do here. Mine is slightly different, but very similar. So if you look at my dot here, my only difference is I have it if it's touching sprite 1. So sprite 1 is my Pac-Man that it's going to hide. The important thing here is that you make sure that the dot reappears every time you start the game over, unless you're going to do the 3 lives thing and make it so it shows up again after you lose 3 lives. Again, have some fun with this. Just enjoy it. Challenge yourself to do more. I was having a lot of fun today just creating my game. So that's kind of where my dots are at. And you can duplicate the dots. So if you right click, you can duplicate and you can have multiple dots, and that's kind of how you can, now if I play my game, you can see when I go past the dot, it disappears. Okay, and anytime I start my game over again, it'll show again. Okay, and it just starts out that way. So that's kind of the dots. Another thing that you might be interested in, you don't have to do this at all, but for those who are interested in points, I'll just show you something new. So in variables, what I did is I made a variable called score. Maybe I'll just make another variable. Okay, they mean nothing. It's just a name for something. So I'm going to call this points. Okay. Now what I can do, you can see there's a little check mark here. If I unclick it, there's no point showing. If I click it, you can see points here, and you can move that anywhere you want to. I could put it down here if I wanted to. Okay, but the cool thing now is I could have it program my sprite so that every time my sprite touches PacMan that I collect a point. So you can do something like this. Okay, every time I start the game, and again, if you start your game over, you probably want to set your, in this case, my points. I'm going to set it to 0. So it'll start over. And then every time I touch the PacMan, or PacMan touches me, what we're going to have is we are going to change, you can choose your score, I'm going to change my points by 1. So theoretically now, if you watch my game, I have 0 points. When I touch the dot, it should hide, and I collect a point. So you can see 1 point. So if I duplicate it with that script there, you're going to see over and over here that now I can collect multiple points, and I can duplicate again and again and again and again. But now theoretically, if I start my game over, there we go, I can collect points. Okay, so that's the next piece. The last thing I want to show you here, and then you should just be creative with how you do all this stuff, has to do with the ghosts. Okay. So the ghost, it kind of shows you and tells you there's a lot of ways you can make the ghost move. I'm just going to show you one of a few ways, and there's other ways you could do this, and there's one really difficult way that I haven't figured out yet, but would be the most realistic to the actual game. So one way you can make your ghost move, so here's my red ghost right there, is you could, so here's my red ghost, I have him always starting when I click green, he always starts right here. So I just have him go to a certain spot. I have him forever moving 3 steps, and then I just said, if he touches the color of the wall, he turns 180 degrees. So there are a couple things that don't go well about this, although it's one way you could do it. Okay, and you could have other ghosts moving up and down, etc. But right now what you're noticing is whenever the ghost hits a wall, he flips around. The weird thing here is, first of all, he's just going to go back and forth in a predictable way. Second of all, when he flips, he turns upside down. I want to show you how to make that, how to fix that. So if you don't want him because he's turning 180 degrees to flip upside down, there's actually something in Motion. They added this recently to set the rotation style. If you set the rotation style to just left-right, so right here, I believe now that when he hits the wall, because that rotation style is left-right, he will, he'll still bounce, but his rotation style is just staying the same way. Okay, there's so much stuff you can do with the ghost. So my next ghost, kind of interesting, he can go through walls. So I'm just going to show you what I did for him. So for my orange ghost, if I play my game, what you'll notice is wherever PacMan goes, ghost follows. Okay, the hard thing about this is that he goes through walls. So it's a little bit unrealistic. Okay, now in order to program it that way, what I did was I made it that he was always moving, and you can set the pace however you want to. He's always moving 1 step, and he's always pointing towards Sprite 1 or PacMan. So he's just always moving towards PacMan regardless, okay? So that's another way you can make him work. A third way, and again, have fun, try other things if you want to. Third way, if you see my green sprite here, I'm just going to show you the beginning of his movement, and maybe I'll even forget about PacMan for the time being, is watch the green ghost. So he starts in the bottom left corner, goes to the bottom right, moves upwards, then he moves leftwards, and then he starts over again. So what this is actually a prescribed path for him. That's kind of interesting. He won't actually follow PacMan, but it looks a little bit more realistic in the sense that he actually moves around the map. So if I look at his script, which is right here, what I have him do is forever, when I click the green, he starts in the bottom left-hand corner. And then here's the interesting kind of the way that I created it. Maybe I'm just going to delete all these guys just to show you. So right now he's in the bottom corner. And then what I can do is choose a new spot. Let's say I want him to go over here. So I move him there. And as you learned, in the Flappy Bird tutorial, when I move him over there, his X and Y coordinates go in all of these. It's 192, negative 138 here. So I'm going to have him glide to that spot. Okay, and the 1 second is something else you'll want to play around with. But if I play right now, over the course of 1 second, so you can see it happens really fast, he's moving to that new spot. Okay, so if I change this to like a 4 seconds, you can play around with this. He's going to take 4 seconds to get to that spot. And then what we can do next is say, okay, I want him to go up here. And because that's a shorter distance than the width, I would like that to take 3 seconds. Okay, then I want him to glide to over here. And I'd like that to take 4 seconds. And I'll just kind of give you a really quick idea. Then maybe I want him to go just only right to here. And that's maybe going to take half a second. So it's a very short distance. And you'll get used to this. You can do whatever you want to, really. Then I'll have him go to this position here. And that's going to take 3 seconds. And again, just play around. Now, the only thing I haven't done is I have to have him finish where he started. Otherwise, that's going to look like he jumps. And I'll just show you that right now. And then I'll play my game and mention a few other things that you can do. So if you watch the green ghost right now, there he goes. He's kind of gliding to all his new positions. But theoretically, he's going to, once he gets to this spot here, he's going to jump back to the beginning. Okay, which is a little bit unrealistic. So there we go. Okay, so you could finish off that path. You could do that with all your ghosts. A couple other things that you might find fun that I have in my game is I actually made it so, and by fun I just mean make it more realistic to the real PacMan. So my PacMan, I made it so that when if you've ever played PacMan, I have it so that when he goes to this opening in the wall, he actually comes out the other side. So if you watch my game right now, let's just see what happens if he goes to that spot. And there we go. So that's kind of cool. The way I did that is with colors. I found colors are super helpful. So I actually, if you look at my map here, I have a very, very dark burgundy. You can see it right here, a dark burgundy box. And I just made it so that when PacMan, if I go to his code, I made it so that if he's touching that dark burgundy color, it waits for a short period of time because it has to be a little bit of a time lapse to get to the other side. And then he goes to that spot. Okay, you can make him go back and forth as well. So all sorts of things you can do and play around with. And I'd love to see what you're challenging yourself to do. But that's the basic premise of what you're going to be doing in the PacMan tutorial. So have some fun with it, please. And another thing you might want to challenge yourself to do if you want to have a lot of fun is if you've played the real PacMan game, you know that if PacMan touches one of the large dots, that the ghosts start flashing blue and white and you can actually kill the ghost. That would be a huge challenge, but some of you might have some fun with that as well.